What if the very parts of yourself you've been taught to hide are actually the source of your deepest power? Have you ever sensed that something unspoken, some hidden aspect of your own mind, might be subtly directing your choices, your reactions, even your fears? What if within that very hidden space lies not a weakness, but a profound and untapped reserve of strength? This is the territory we're exploring today, the powerful psychological concept of the shadow as framed by the pioneering thinker Carl Jung. We'll uncover how a conscious relationship with this hidden self can lead to remarkable emotional freedom and unlock capacities you may have sidelined. You'll also discover practical ways to identify and integrate the subtle forces that might be limiting your life. But first, let's understand the mind that introduced this idea. Carl Jung was a revolutionary explorer of the human psyche, focusing deeply on the unconscious realms that shape our conscious experience. He proposed that each of us carries a shadow, a collection of traits, impulses, and potential that we've learned to disown or suppress. Jung suggested that the more we relegate this material to the darkness of unawareness, the more solid and influential it becomes. In essence, what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves doesn't vanish. It operates autonomously, often creating patterns where we feel stuck, reactive, or strangely disconnected from our authentic nature. Neglecting this shadow dimension can lead to significant personal costs. You might find yourself acutely irritated by certain qualities in others, not realizing this irritation is a mirror reflecting a disowned part of yourself. This psychological mechanism, projection, can fuel conflicts and leave us feeling alienated, not just from others, but from the full spectrum of who we are. Stay with me, because by the end of our time, you'll have a clear map for understanding what's been operating behind the scenes of your awareness. If this resonates, consider liking this video and sharing in the comments what facet of your inner world you're curious to explore next. Awareness of your shadow is merely the initial, crucial step. It's the doorway to genuine self-reclamation and transformation. But what if the characteristics you've been conditioned to dismiss are, in fact, the bedrock of your unique potential? Your shadow holds a silent narrative that could radically shift your perception of your own identity and capacity. Carl Jung introduced this notion of the personal shadow, proposing that these concealed portions of our personality are molded by early upbringing, cultural expectations, and pivotal life events. From childhood, we are subtly instructed on what is praised and what is penalized. We instinctively compartmentalize, pushing away the elements of our being that don't align with these external blueprints. This forms what Jung termed the personal shadow, a psychic vault for the emotions, desires, and traits we deem unacceptable. Consider a young person repeatedly told that showing sadness is a sign of fragility. Over time, they may learn to bury their grief and vulnerability. As an adult, they might struggle with intimacy or feel uneasy around those who express emotion openly. Yet here lies the counterintuitive revelation. If they were to gently explore that buried sorrow, they might find it contains the seed of profound empathy and the courage for genuine connection, essential qualities for a fulfilling life. Jung also spoke of a collective shadow. This refers to the denied aspects shared by entire communities or societies, such as unexamined biases, inherited fears, or cultural blind spots. For instance, a culture that idolizes relentless optimism might collectively suppress expressions of doubt or grief, making it harder for individuals to process these natural human experiences. Both the personal and collective shadows influence our daily reality. Someone who has walled off their own need for care might become harshly critical of others' perceived neediness. A person who buried their artistic spirit might feel a pang of resentment toward those who create freely. These hidden fragments shape our engagements with the world, often without our conscious consent. The hopeful truth is this: recognizing your shadow is the first act of reclaiming the wholeness you've lost. Despite its ominous name, the shadow is not a monster to be slain. It holds immense, latent potential. If left unexplored, it can construct invisible barriers between you and your true expression. But when you engage with it with curiosity, you unearth strengths and talents lying dormant. One clear sign of the shadow's activity is through intense emotional triggers. If you feel a surge of anger toward someone's disciplined routine, it might signal a disowned part of you that yearns for greater structure and self-mastery. These potent reactions are like signposts, guiding you toward what remains hidden in your inner landscape. Jung taught that the shadow encompasses not just difficult traits, but also repressed positive qualities, instinctual wisdom, innovative capacity, and vital insights. This means the shadow isn't a chamber of horrors. It's a misunderstood dimension of the self, awaiting respectful dialogue and integration. Keep watching, because next we'll delve into the practice of shadow work, the active process of uncovering and reclaiming these hidden chapters of yourself. This involves compassionate inquiry into our emotional flares, identifying our triggers, and reflecting on the qualities we've been taught to exile. Shadow work cultivates greater self-understanding, emotional agility, and a life lived with more authenticity. By learning these approaches, you'll access concealed strengths and align more closely with your intrinsic nature. As we start to examine our inner shadows, we often miss how they color our everyday perceptions. Have you ever taken an immediate, strong dislike to someone without a clear reason? Carl Jung's concept of psychological projection provides a compelling lens for such experiences. He observed that we tend to ascribe to other people all the faults and inferiorities we are unwilling to recognize in ourselves. This potent insight reveals that the qualities we strive to avoid within ourselves frequently dictate how we perceive others, leading to friction and misunderstanding. Projection occurs when we unconsciously transfer our own unacknowledged traits or feelings onto another person. It's a protective strategy that helps us avoid confronting aspects of our own psyche that cause discomfort. By attributing these qualities to others, we create a safe distance from what we don't wish to face internally. For example, reflect on a time when a friend's indecisiveness intensely frustrated you. You might quickly label them as weak or passive. But here's the pivot. Your strong reaction could be a message from your own shadow. Perhaps without realizing it, you've suppressed your own uncertainties or desires for more time to choose. In this scenario, what you perceive in your friend might be an echo of something unaddressed within you. Learning to spot projection in daily life opens doors to critical self-knowledge. When you experience powerful emotional responses like sudden contempt, harsh judgment, or intense admiration, it's an invitation to turn your gaze inward. These charged feelings are often clues pointing to chapters of your shadow seeking attention and integration. Cultivating awareness of our projections can fundamentally change how we interact. Instead of responding with automatic criticism or defensiveness, we can learn to pause and ask, what in me is being reflected here? This internal shift fosters more authentic and empathetic relationships, as we realize our perceptions are frequently tinted by our own unresolved material. Noticing projection requires practice, patience, and a commitment to self-honesty. Think of the last time someone, a partner, a colleague, a family member, truly agitated you. Instead of immediately voicing your frustration, take a breath and inquire, what quality in them is touching a part of myself I've sidelined? This simple act of reflection can unlock deeper self-awareness and reveal aspects you've concealed for years. Through this, you'll not only understand your own emotional world better, but also enhance your connections with others. It's also vital to remember projection isn't solely negative. Your shadow may house positive attributes you've hidden due to social conditioning or personal insecurity. For instance, you might deeply admire someone's calm leadership, not recognizing that this capacity for grounded authority also resides within you, awaiting permission to emerge. Acknowledging these positive projections can help you recover your innate strengths and wield them with greater confidence. Engaging with projection and integrating your shadow is a lifelong journey. As Jung noted, only by passing through this inner darkness can one hope to advance toward wholeness. This process demands courage and steadfastness, but the rewards are substantial. By confronting your projections and welcoming home the parts of yourself you've exiled, you'll develop richer self-awareness, emotional resilience, and more genuine relationships. The passage through our inner wilderness often leads to surprising clearings of light. What if your most concealed traits, the ones wrapped in shame, are actually the gateway to your highest possibilities? This inverts the common narrative of personal development. Carl Jung proposed that the portions of ourselves we hide aren't merely repositories of flaw. They also contain potent attributes like originality, conviction, and vitality. Jung's vision of the shadow invites a profound reframe. Instead of seeing the shadow as a sack of weaknesses, we can begin to view it as a reservoir of dormant potential. This change in viewpoint allows us to approach shadow work with a spirit of investigation rather than dread or condemnation. Take the quality of determined focus, for instance. In many environments, particularly for those taught to be accommodating, sustained focus on personal goals can be mislabeled as selfishness or rigidity. So, people often dampen this quality, storing it in the shadow. But when this focused determination is consciously integrated, it transforms into a vital strength. It enables us to pursue meaningful objectives, uphold personal standards, and navigate life with purposeful direction. Creative expression is another capacity often relegated to the shadow due to pragmatic demands or internalized criticism. A person who believes they cannot honor their imaginative impulses because of real-world responsibilities may feel a chronic sense of stagnation. But when they embrace this creative current, they unlock a wellspring of innovation and personal meaning that enriches every aspect of living. Jung believed that by integrating these hidden portions of ourselves, we move toward what he called individuation, psychological wholeness. Authentic growth doesn't spring from rejecting or concealing parts of who we are, but from acknowledging and weaving together all threads of our psyche. The aim is to become the most complete, genuine version of yourself. Naturally, this process isn't without its challenges. Jung stated that the shadow presents a moral challenge that tests the entire ego personality, for becoming conscious of it demands significant moral effort. In other words, shadow work is demanding. It means facing aspects of ourselves we've ignored or buried, often for decades. It can be unsettling, even daunting, but the payoff is invaluable. By reclaiming the positive qualities sequestered in our shadow, we unlock new sources of power, originality, and resilience. These traits allow us to meet life's complexities with greater flexibility and authenticity. We become better equipped to handle adversity because we can draw upon the full repertoire of our being. If you're wondering how to begin identifying and reclaiming your positive shadow traits, here's a simple starting point. Consider an individual you respect, or perhaps feel a tinge of envy toward. What specific attributes do they possess that captivate you? Now, gently ask yourself if seeds of those same traits might exist within you, perhaps in a latent or under-nurtured form. Contemplating this can offer valuable insights into your shadow and highlight territories for your own growth. Another pathway to uncovering your shadow is to monitor your emotional resonances. When someone's behavior sparks a strong, positive, or negative response in you, pause and ask what that resonance might reveal about your own unexpressed qualities. Frequently, the traits we react to most powerfully are the ones we've tucked away in our shadow. Remember, the goal isn't to eradicate the shadow. It's an inherent part of the human psyche. Instead, the aim is to develop a conscious, working relationship with it. By understanding and engaging with your shadow, you can harness its energy for profound personal development and heightened self-awareness. This journey leads toward a more balanced, resilient, and fulfilled existence. What does it require to confront your most deeply buried apprehensions? The ones so well hidden you barely sense their presence. While shadow work offers profound growth and fulfillment, the path can be demanding. Many turn back when discomfort arises. But what if that discomfort is the very threshold to greater self-knowledge and hidden strengths? What might we find if we courageously meet our deepest fears? Carl Jung held that intellectual understanding of the shadow is insufficient. It requires moral courage to truly face it. He taught that becoming conscious of it involves acknowledging the darker dimensions of the personality as genuine and present. In essence, shadow work asks us to confront the segments of ourselves we have long avoided or disowned. Very often, the initial response is resistance. Our minds are designed to protect us from perceived threats, and honest self-examination can feel perilous when it challenges our established self-image. But that unease is frequently a signal. It means you're nearing something significant, something calling for healing and integration. However, shadow work necessitates both bravery and compassion. It takes courage to face parts of yourself that feel uncomfortable or contradict your desired identity. Simultaneously, it's crucial to approach these discoveries with kindness, not self-judgment. When you meet these hidden chapters with compassion, you create the conditions for true healing and growth. In the early stages, you might encounter strong emotions, guilt, shame, or anger. Rather than viewing these feelings as obstacles, recognize them as indicators pointing toward territories in need of attention. By acknowledging these emotions instead of fleeing from them, you open the pathway to integration. Emotional resilience is foundational to shadow work. It means cultivating the capacity to be present with uncomfortable truths without becoming overwhelmed. Mindfulness practices can be particularly supportive here, allowing you to observe thoughts and feelings as transient events without being captured by their narrative. You begin to witness these emotions rise and fall like weather patterns without being swept away by the storm. Another vital component of shadow work is releasing judgment. Often, the traits we've hidden are ones that our social environment or past experiences taught us to reject. But what if, instead of condemning these parts, you approach them with respectful curiosity? This shift in stance permits deeper understanding and healing to unfold. It's also important to remember that shadow work isn't a destination, but an ongoing process. Just when you believe you've integrated one layer, another may surface. Jung described it as a lengthy process of negotiation, meaning we are in continuous dialogue with our unconscious, gradually bringing more hidden material into the light of awareness. If you are new to this work, it's wise to start gently. Instead of plunging into the most painful chapters of your history, begin by observing minor irritations or judgments in your daily routine. These smaller moments can serve as accessible portals into your shadow. As you grow more accustomed to the process, you can explore deeper dimensions of your inner world. Journaling is another potent instrument for shadow work. Writing provides a secure, private arena to express thoughts and feelings that might otherwise remain concealed. Don't concern yourself with eloquence. Simply allow words to flow. You may begin to notice patterns or recurring themes that offer insight into the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Having supportive guidance can also make shadow work more navigable. A skilled mentor or therapist can offer tools to help you process difficult emotions, provide clarifying perspective, and illuminate aspects of your shadow you might overlook on your own. What if a simple notebook could alter the course of your life? The shadow within holds immense potential for personal evolution, but how do we access it in practical, daily ways? You might imagine shadow work requires esoteric rituals or intensive therapy. But what if just a few minutes of dedicated self-reflection each day could fundamentally reshape your self-perception and your engagement with the world? Carl Jung believed that simple, practical methods were essential for working with the shadow. Intellectual comprehension isn't enough. We must actively engage with it. One of the most accessible and effective ways is through reflective writing. Putting your thoughts on paper helps you delve into your emotional currents and identify parts of yourself that may have been obscured, all within a safe and private container. Shadow journaling isn't about crafting perfect prose or maintaining a meticulous diary. It's about allowing your thoughts and feelings to flow onto the page without censorship. This uncensored expression helps you detect patterns in your reactions or behaviors that might otherwise remain invisible. To begin shadow journaling, set aside a few quiet minutes each day. Write without agenda or distraction. Focus on moments that triggered a noticeable emotional shift. Ask yourself, what exactly stirred this response? What deeper story might this reaction be telling? As you reflect, you may uncover aspects of yourself you've been avoiding or denying. Mindfulness complements journaling beautifully as it trains you to observe your inner experience without immediate judgment. By practicing present moment awareness, you become more adept at noticing when you're projecting emotions onto others or overlooking your own genuine feelings. A simple mindfulness practice could be pausing 3 times daily to scan your inner state, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Self-reflection exercises offer another valuable avenue. For instance, when someone's behavior provokes irritation or admiration, instead of dwelling solely on their actions, turn inward and inquire, what does my response reveal about a quality I may have disowned in myself? This simple pivot helps you recognize shadow elements seeking your attention. Jung emphasized the importance of approaching this work with rigorous honesty and deep self-compassion. As you uncover various aspects of yourself, meet these discoveries with curiosity, not criticism. The objective isn't to purge your shadow, but to understand it and cultivate a healthier, more conscious relationship with it. So, here is a straightforward daily practice to begin. Start your day with a few minutes of mindful breathing, simply observing the flow of thoughts and sensations. Throughout the day, take brief pauses to check in with your emotional state, especially when something triggers a response. Then, in the evening, spend 10 to 15 minutes journaling about your day, noting any insights or emotional patterns that emerged. If you encounter resistance or discomfort during this practice, that's perfectly normal. It often indicates you're approaching meaningful material in your subconscious. When difficult emotions surface, be gentle with yourself. Remember, it requires courage to face your shadow, and each small step is progress on the path toward self-awareness and integration. Why do certain stories and myths captivate us across centuries and cultures? These narratives may reveal far more about our inner selves than we realize. Ancient tales and modern legends act as mirrors, reflecting the parts of ourselves we attempt to conceal, what Carl Jung termed the shadow. A classic illustration is the tale of a respected scholar who, through a secret formula, unleashes a chaotic, impulsive alter ego. This story dramatizes the consequences of attempting to sever the acceptable self from the suppressed instincts. The narrative's power lies in its universal truth. The denial of our shadow leads not to purity, but to fragmentation and potential chaos. True equilibrium requires acknowledging and making peace with these hidden dimensions. So why does such a story resonate so powerfully? Because it taps into a fundamental human tension, the internal conflict between the persona we present and the parts we exile. The scholar's futile attempt to compartmentalize his nature teaches us that wholeness arises not from elimination, but from conscious integration. Mythologies worldwide are rich with shadow symbolism. Consider the archetype of the shapeshifter or cunning trickster present in many traditions. Figures who embody chaos, rule-breaking, and untamed instinct. Qualities we might disavow in ourselves. Yet these tricksters are also catalysts for change, innovation, and necessary disruption. By studying them, we can better comprehend how our own shadow influences our lives and relationships. These stories endure because they speak to something primordial within us. They help us explore territories of the self we might fear to confront. By relating to the struggles of these mythic characters, we can perceive our own shadow in a new light and understand the costs of ignoring it. Crucially, many myths illustrate the transformative power of facing the shadow. Countless heroes must journey into a forest, descend into an underworld, or confront a monstrous reflection to gain essential wisdom and power. This aligns with Jung's conviction that the shadow holds not just difficult material, but also repressed creativity, insight, and latent potential. Using stories and myths can be a powerful tool for shadow work. One method is to notice which characters or narratives evoke strong emotional responses in you. If a tale deeply moves or disturbs you, it might be reflecting something within your own shadow. Reflecting on why a story stirs such feelings can help you uncover hidden emotions, desires, or behavioral patterns. Another approach is to consciously reframe a familiar story from a different character's viewpoint. Attempting to understand the motives of a so-called villain can cultivate empathy and, in turn, help you recognize similar potentials within yourself. Exploring your shadow through narrative offers a unique and enriching path to self-discovery. These stories not only help us recognize what we've pushed away, but also guide us toward a deeper understanding of our own psyche. By engaging with these archetypal tales, we take meaningful strides toward emotional healing and personal growth. The work of engaging your personal shadow doesn't only foster individual evolution, it can also contribute to healing the wider world. Carl Jung proposed that the shadow exists not just within individuals, but collectively within societies. A shared reservoir of denied fears, prejudices, and historical injustices we'd rather not confront. When a culture refuses to acknowledge its collective shadow, it can manifest in systemic division, pervasive misunderstanding, and entrenched inequality. Alarmingly, these harmful patterns are often rationalized as being for a collective good. To genuinely heal, both individually and societally, we must face these darker aspects at ethical, social, and spiritual levels. Jung believed that understanding your personal shadow is the foundational step, which then expands into the capacity to address broader social challenges. Consider this. When you confront your own hidden biases and fears, you become more sensitive to how they connect to larger issues like social equity or communal well-being. Personal integration radiates outward, influencing how you engage with others and perceive systemic structures. For example, someone who has done the work to integrate their own tendencies toward judgment will be more likely to recognize and question unfair practices in their community, potentially sparking meaningful dialogue and change. Confronting the collective shadow demands bravery. It means facing uncomfortable truths about our shared history and current realities. It involves initiating difficult conversations, acknowledging collective mistakes, and taking responsibility for historical harms. Jung noted that the world remains full of scapegoats. We often blame external groups for what we are unwilling to address within our own collective psyche. By facing our shared flaws, we move beyond blame and toward genuine solutions. Healing the collective shadow can take many forms: public acknowledgement of past wrongs, truth-telling processes, or acts of restorative justice. These actions not only foster societal healing, but also help prevent the repetition of historical patterns. By recognizing both our personal and collective shadows, we contribute to building a more conscious and equitable world. By facing our individual shadows, as Jung advised, we begin to see how our personal anxieties and biases intertwine with larger societal currents. This heightened awareness can inspire us to take action. For instance, when we acknowledge our own unconscious assumptions, we become more equipped to advocate for fairness in our workplaces and communities, helping to create more inclusive environments. Organizations, educational institutions, and communities can also benefit from facing their collective shadow. Honest dialogues about difficult histories and present-day blind spots can pave the way for healing and progress. This might involve confronting institutional prejudices or revising long-held norms that no longer serve collective well-being. These steps, while challenging, are necessary for creating lasting, positive change. As Jung suggested, the courage with which we bear our own darkness liberates others from carrying it for us. When we take responsibility for our personal shadows, we lighten the load for the collective. By doing our part, we help weave a more compassionate and just social fabric. Acknowledging the collective shadow is not simple work, but it is profoundly worthwhile. It means observing patterns, questioning inherited beliefs, and being willing to engage in uncomfortable conversations. Yet, through this engagement, we can begin to address deeply rooted societal issues and foster communities that are more equitable, understanding, and whole. As we strive to build kinder, more conscious communities, a central question arises. What does it feel like to be genuinely whole? Imagine experiencing a sense of inner peace that includes every facet of your being, even those you've tried to ignore or hide. It may seem like a distant ideal, but what if that equilibrium is more accessible than you think? Carl Jung proposed that achieving wholeness, what he termed individuation, is the heart of true personal development. Individuation involves bringing all parts of yourself, including the repressed and unseen, into a harmonious relationship. According to Jung, authentic psychological health and self-realization can only occur when the conscious mind and the unconscious realms learn to communicate and cooperate. This isn't about achieving perfection or eradicating flaw. Instead, it's about recognizing, accepting, and ultimately embracing the totality of who you are. When you do this, you cease fighting an internal civil war and stop projecting disowned traits onto the people around you. You begin to live with greater internal cohesion, peace, and self-understanding. The benefits of facing your shadow, those hidden, often neglected dimensions of your personality, are substantial. As you become acquainted with your shadow, you develop emotional resilience. You'll find it easier to navigate life's inevitable challenges and avoid falling into repetitive, self-limiting patterns. A significant benefit of shadow work is the profound improvement it can bring to your relationships. Once you comprehend your own inner complexity, you naturally become more empathetic and less judgmental toward others. Instead of unconsciously projecting your fears or frustrations onto people, you connect with them more authentically and meaningfully. This depth of self-awareness can enrich not only personal bonds, but also professional and social interactions. Individuals who have integrated their shadow often describe a profound sense of liberation. They no longer feel captive to external expectations or their own limiting self-concepts. This inner freedom allows them to live with greater authenticity without constantly masking or pretending. For instance, imagine someone who has done shadow work receiving challenging feedback at work. Instead of reacting defensively, they might receive the critique with openness and curiosity. Their self-awareness helps them notice any emotional triggers, allowing them to respond thoughtfully rather than reflexively. This doesn't mean they don't feel the sting of criticism, but they can process it without being overwhelmed. In relationships, shadow integration fosters deeper, more secure connections. A person who has embraced their shadow is more likely to communicate their needs and boundaries clearly. They understand that vulnerability is not a liability, but a cornerstone of genuine intimacy. This kind of courageous honesty creates the conditions for truly supportive and loving partnerships. The process of integrating your shadow is ongoing, not a one-time achievement. As you bring certain aspects into awareness, new layers may emerge. This requires patience and gentle persistence. Jung said that a long process of negotiation is unavoidable, meaning shadow work is a continuous, respectful dialogue with the unconscious. As you persist in bringing more of yourself into the light, so if you're seeking a felt sense of wholeness and integration, try this brief visualization. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a serene, open space. Before you stands a large, slightly obscured mirror. Instead of your usual reflection, you perceive a figure that represents aspects of yourself you've overlooked or feared. Instead of turning away, imagine stepping forward and merging with this reflection. Sense any tension soften into a feeling of peace and completeness. When you open your eyes, carry that sensation of wholeness with you into your day. By accepting all parts of ourselves, we can live more fully and authentically. This is the path to true psychological integration, where we acknowledge, weave together, and honor every thread of our being. While personal shadow work fuels individual growth, its influence extends far beyond the self. How has Carl Jung's concept of the shadow shaped contemporary approaches to spirituality and self-awareness? From popular personality frameworks to therapeutic modalities, Jung's notion of the shadow has profoundly influenced how we explore our inner worlds and our place in the collective. Jung's idea of the shadow, those disowned parts of the self, has significantly impacted modern personal development landscapes. For example, many popular typology systems are rooted in Jungian psychology, helping people identify not only their dominant strengths, but also their less conscious, opposite tendencies, the territory of the shadow. This recognition is a first step toward greater personal and spiritual maturity. Shadow work has also become integral to many contemporary healing and coaching practices. Therapists and guides use its principles to move beyond symptom management and encourage clients toward radical self-acceptance. True healing unfolds when we embrace all parts of our story, including the chapters we've tried to skip. Even mainstream therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, intersect with shadow concepts when they guide us to examine the core beliefs driving our thoughts and actions. This exploration often leads directly to shadow material, uncovering hidden fears or desires subtly dictating our behavior. Research in psychology supports the idea that engaging with our shadow promotes deep healing. Individuals who cultivate self-awareness and self-acceptance tend to experience reduced anxiety, greater emotional resilience, and more satisfying relationships. By bringing hidden parts into conscious relationship, shadow work frees us from the grip of fear and shame. Shadow work is also deeply connected to the development of emotional intelligence and the principles of positive psychology. Authentic spiritual growth isn't about maintaining constant positivity. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of light and dark within. Only by integrating both can we move toward genuine wholeness. In leadership and community contexts, shadow work fosters more honest and compassionate environments. Leaders who have faced their own shadows tend to lead with greater wisdom, integrity, and authenticity. If you're curious to explore shadow work, numerous resources and guides are available today. Jung's teachings remind us that this work isn't about fixing a broken self, It's about becoming who we truly already are. In doing so, we don't just heal individually, we contribute to a more conscious and compassionate world. As you contemplate shadow work, consider this. How might your life shift if, instead of fleeing from your inner depths, you turned toward them with curiosity? Often, the road to wholeness leads us directly through the very shadows we've spent a lifetime circumventing. Carl Jung, who illuminated the concept of the shadow, once wrote that there is no consciousness without facing the darkness. This profound insight captures the transformative essence of shadow work. Jung's philosophy underscores the necessity of balance and authenticity for psychological well-being. By acknowledging and accepting all parts of ourselves, including the banished and the unseen, we move toward what he called individuation. This isn't about striving for flawlessness or eliminating weakness, but about embracing the full continuum of light and dark within. The journey of integrating your shadow often begins with a simple, courageous curiosity. You might start by asking, what aspects of my experience do I consistently avoid? What qualities in others provoke a disproportionate reaction in me that might point to a disowned part of myself? This self-inquiry can be challenging, but it leads to indispensable insights and evolution. When you embrace your shadow, you unlock the door to a more authentic and fulfilling life. As you bring hidden aspects into awareness, you build emotional muscle, enabling you to meet life's complexities with greater ease. You'll be less prone to knee-jerk reactions or self-sabotaging cycles. At the core of this process lies self-acceptance. By welcoming home all parts of yourself, including those you previously rejected, you create an inner environment ripe for healing and growth. Self-acceptance doesn't mean endorsing harmful behaviors, but understanding their roots, often in unmet needs or past wounds. This understanding allows you to transform what once felt like a flaw into a source of insight and strength. Confronting long-denied parts of yourself isn't effortless, but it's through this courageous acceptance that integration occurs. What once triggered shame or fear can gradually become a wellspring of personal power and potential. Envision a more integrated version of yourself navigating a professional challenge. Instead of responding defensively to a setback, you might approach it with reflective curiosity. Your self-awareness would allow you to recognize emotional triggers, enabling you to choose a response aligned with your values rather than being hijacked by old patterns. To begin tapping into the power of self-acceptance, try this brief meditation. Sit comfortably and take a few deep, centering breaths. Bring to mind an aspect of yourself you've struggled to accept, a trait, a past action, a persistent challenge. Hold it in your awareness without judgment and silently affirm, "This too is part of my experience. I meet it with compassion. I am worthy of wholeness encompassing all my complexities." Rest with this intention for a few moments. Remember, embracing your shadow doesn't mean indulging in negativity. It's about meeting these parts with compassionate awareness. When you do, you may discover that what once seemed dark or unwanted can become a source of inner fortitude, creativity, and profound self-knowledge. As we conclude this exploration of Carl Jung's shadow concept, it's essential to remember that shadow work is not a task to be completed, but a lifelong journey of growth and self-discovery. Jung reminded us that to become conscious of the shadow involves recognizing the darker aspects of the personality as present and real. This continuous practice builds self-awareness, emotional strength, and deeper, more authentic connections. Jung described the shadow as the doorway to our individuality. By regularly engaging with it, we can unlock concealed strengths and transform perceived liabilities into vital assets. This path asks for patience and commitment, but when you approach your shadow with curiosity and compassion, you open yourself to immense personal evolution. As you continue on this journey, reflect on this question. How might embracing your shadow lead you to a life that feels more authentically your own? The path of self-discovery is yours to walk. If this exploration was valuable to you, please like this video and share your reflections in the comments below. Whether you're beginning your shadow work journey or have already felt its transformative impact. Imagine how much richer your life could be if you fully welcomed all of who you are.